Hey, welcome everyone. I hope your winter is going well so far. Today we're going to present the top 10 of 2022. Very specifically, we're going to talk about my best experiences in board gaming of this year. We're going to hit it right off the bat with some honorary mentions. First up is Marvel United X-Men. This one arrived late last year, but I got all of the boxes, and when they came, oh boy, there were a lot of miniatures. I love painting these Marvel United miniatures. They're little chibis, and they're really nice to paint, especially if you're new to painting. And the game itself is fun. It's a simple game. It's a fast game. But it didn't really appeal to me until a campaign mode came out made by a fan of Marvel United. And that really hit it off because now I also had a momentum in painting as well as a fun story narrative, so to speak, to follow. The reason it didn't get past an honorable mention, I have to say, is because the locations are not very interesting. The gameplay is not super involved. So there is really only the characters to look forward to, as well as the emergent storytelling. When The Great Race came out, I was really impressed by the production and just the charmingness of it. The locations are great. You're racing around the world. You have dual layered player boards. You have various teams from around the world. And so when Great Race 2 came out, the expansion this year, of course I had to follow up. Enjoy the paper money, the little cars, the screen printed meeples, and just the overall production really gives me that vibe of 80 Days Around the World. Moving on to number 10. On number 10, we have a Plaid Hat game, Familiar Tales. Plaid Hat is really well known for its great location map books. The minis, the story that is attached to it, the atmosphere, everything about Familiar Tales is the epitome of what Plaid Hat is doing right now. And so, naturally, this could not be omitted from my top 10 list. I've had a lot of fun with this. The miniatures are great. The locations are evocative and colorful. Yeah, Familiar Tales. That's my number 10. On number 9, we find the surprise hit Vagrant Song. It released in 2021, 2022. I got it early in this year, and yeah, this game is something else. It's a boss battler with acrylic minis. The characters are all sort of 1920s cartoony characters, and yeah, the game is just very evocative. It has little bits of story events in it. It has strategy, tactics, and the production is glossy. It's just an all-around really nice game to play. That's Vagrant Song on number 9. On number 8, we find Forest of Radgost. Forest of Radgost is a great character, event, and location game. The characters all come from Slavic mythology. You're wandering through a forest and you're having stories, and that's essentially the game. It's a very simple game, but very, very prone to emergent storytelling, especially with families and kids. I find it extremely charming. The production is really gorgeous, and yeah, just wandering through this forest brings me joy in an effortless, fun kind of a way. So that's Forest of Radgost on number 8. On number 7, we have the Venetian horror Carnival Zombie, 2nd edition. This is a tower defense game where you're essentially running through Venice with a troupe of Venetian heroes, I want to say, and you're holding off zombies. It's a really fun game, even if the zombies are represented by cubes, the bosses are with miniatures. It's very atmospheric. There's a lot of sense that you're actually in Venice fighting these monsters, and it's very tense. Every game is tense, especially when you have to stack those zombies onto the graveyard. Whatever falls off just returns back like an actual zombie. It's very, very thematic, a very, very tense and fun game. That's Carnival Zombie on 7. On number 6, we find ISS Vanguard. No list would be complete without an Awakened Realms game, and this year we find ourselves in outer space. Tainted Grail and Etherfields were excellent narrative adventure games with excellent characters, great events, and just epic locations. ISS Vanguard continues that tradition, but now on the ship, the ISS Vanguard. It is very, very well produced in terms of audio narration, in terms of immersion into the locations with the map book. Yeah, ISS Vanguard hits all the right points in an adventure game, and that's on number 6. On number 5, we find a gigantuan Oathsworn. Lauded by a lot of gamers in the industry, reviewers, and people like myself alike. This game is a behemoth of a boss battler. A boss battler combined with a story adventure mode, I want to say. The miniatures are larger scaled than typical miniatures and are gorgeous with interchangeable parts. And yeah, they go into the Deepwood, and in the Deepwood they find all sorts of monsters and monstrosities to battle. The location is very dramatic and very epic in its adventure feel. But even in the city mode, when you're exploring and you're having narrative events that kind of are reminiscent of a choose your own adventure, you're just exploring all the time. In the meantime, you're building out your character, you are outfitting your heroes with a diversity of weapons, and yeah, whether you have the standee version or the miniature version, whether you have terrain or not, this is just one immersive, evocative adventure. Highly deserved to be on number 5 in my list. And on number 4, we have another boss battler, Alien Trespass Odyssey by Into the Unknown. I am not a big boss battler fan, but this year has given us a lot of really good games, regardless of the fact that you're fighting these monsters essentially that beat you down over and over again until you find a way to defeat them. In the meantime, there is a lot around the combat to do on your ship, the Argo. You are sailing around the Greek islands in this epic setting where everything is enlarged and dangerous, but also exciting at the same time. And you are crafting new technologies to outfit your titans who go into battle with these monstrosities. And there are 3 acts to this story, 3 big giant campaigns, each with their own flavor. So you're not just fighting, you're not just committing yourself to tactical battles, but you're also exploring narrative and events and interesting personal stories. This is one massive game. I've played it a lot already, but I plan on playing it a lot more. There's so much to love at Alien Trespass Odyssey. Well deserved on spot 4 in my list. On number 3, we have another tower defense game, Sheol. I would never have thought in a million years that so many boss battlers or tower defense games would have made my list. I'm typically a dungeon crawler, narrative, story-driven campaign kind of a guy. But that's why it's so surprising that all these games are on my list. Sheol, like many of these other games, have very strong narrative aspects. You are not only exploring this wild land and outfitting these outlandish heroes with new equipment and upgrading them, leveling them up, but you are also exploring really weird locations and having outlandish events occur to them, things that drive drama and tension and sorrow and happiness in these characters. I'm really impressed with Sheol. Regretfully, the game is really hard to get now because it was a crowdfunding game like most of these games, but boy oh boy is this an evocative game. I painted up all the miniatures in 48 hours or less, and I had a blast ever since. I do not see Sheol disappearing from my collection anytime soon. This is a wonderfully post-apocalyptic sci-fi adventure game which comes highly recommended on spot number 3. We are now entering the top 2, and on 2 is Stars of Akarios, another science fiction game. A zippy one though, dog fights in space. This is first game, and boy, is it a zinger. I love everything about this. The spaceship combat is reminiscent of Star Wars X-Wing. The exploration is like the 7th continent, but in space. And there is so much more to love. There's story, there's narrative that comes with an audio file. It's not the best spoken audio file, but it sure draws you into the action, and it's effortless fun. All these spaceships just zipping around each other and shooting at each other and twisting and turning. I was so inspired by this game. I made my own terrain. Just looking at the tiles was not enough. I wanted something that felt as 3D as the models. So yeah, this is the ultimate hobby game where it just inspires you to add on your own creation, your own creativity, and then just go off into space and explore. Very well deserved. My number 2 of 2022 is Stars of Akarios. And the number 1 game of 2022 to me is Trudvang Legends from CMON. I may be the only one who puts this game this high on the list, but to me, it's personally the embodiment of an adventure story game. I went all in on the role-playing game, and so I had a head start in understanding the lore of Trudvang, but then the game came out and had this glorious map that changes as you progress through it. These storybooks, little bite-sized chunks of adventure, maps that you could explore. And then, of course, not just event cards and characters, but the minis. CMON is known for its minis. And of course, I had to paint them all up. That's what I did. I enjoyed painting every single one of these. Every mini had its own story. As I painted through these, I got to know them very intimately. And the role-playing game is great, but to have a board game that actually allows you to play by yourself, play it solo, and add things like rune stones and your own dice, and this makes it just the ultimate hobby game to me. But even if you didn't have all these things, even if you didn't have the role-playing game or all these hobby creative urges, the game itself is sound, it's effortless fun, and I can't wait to see what Trudvang Legends brings next in 2023. And that's it. That's my top 10 of 2022. If you had some of these games as well, I hope you enjoyed them just as much as I did. But even if you played vastly different games, as long as you had a great time, that's all that matters, right? Anyway, see you next time on the next Story Tiles.